So then we move on to the third of our mark making challenges, and this is where we're adding tone. So this is really a good example, a good way to show how you can change the shading just by either making your lines closer together or by pressing more gently or hard. So let's start off with doing some cross hatching. So I'm going to do some really loose cross hatching first, and you can see there's big gaps in between, and then I'm going to create my lines, or draw my lines slightly closer together so I close off, and again a little bit closer together, and closer even still. Now, what do you notice from my first cross hatching to my last cross hatching? They look like the pencil's got darker the further along. Now I applied exactly the same amount of pressure, but I just made my lines closer and closer together, and that is what has created the effect of it being a darker pencil. Now we could do this with a squiggle. Nice and loose, a bit tighter, sort of more layers going over it again and again. Until, because I've layered it up so much and made my squiggles so small, I've created a darker colour. You could also do this with stippling the dots. And then the last one I want to show you is using circles. I draw my circles quite large to start with, almost like pebbles. Could be good if you're drawing something like a beach maybe. And make my circles slightly smaller. And again smaller. So they're all closer together. Smaller. And then really, really small. So again, you can see just by changing the size of my lines, the closeness of my lines, I can give the effect of a lighter colour down to a much darker colour. And there I haven't actually changed the pressure. If you wanted to experiment with changing the pressure, you could start with a really light, I'm just going to do a zigzag line, so really light pressure, and then gradually pressing down a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. You probably hear the sound of my pencil is changing the harder I am pressing. So those are all the kind of pencil techniques that you can have a go in practicing, and that will be really useful for when we come to do some observational drawing next week. If you wanted to, you can just try as I've done, just on a piece of paper, or you could use these and try again the activity, the line, take your line for a walk activity from, I think it was week 3. So if you just make a shape, then the idea is that you can then use these techniques to fill your spaces. So I might do cross hatching in this one. Notice as well, with me using my pencil, I'm just doing broad strokes. I'm not doing it really carefully and concentrating on my line. I'm holding my pencil quite loosely. It doesn't have to be exact. Which way have I not done yet? This way. Then I might fill with the scribbles, with the circular scribbles. In fact, I'm going to do mine so it's dark in one corner, and then I'm going to lighten the pressure on my pencil. So although it still looks quite dark because I'm doing my circles close together, I've still managed to make it lighter by applying a different amount of pressure. What else could we do? You might like to fill one with wavy lines. Or you could fill one with the dots. Doesn't have to be any particular pattern to this, they can be completely random. You might want to go back over and fill in space if you want a darker colour or darker shade. Note here as well, unlike some of the other techniques, I'm using the tip of the pencil rather than the side of it. And then for my last part, I am going to try my circles rather than the scribbles. They are overlapping slightly, but that's absolutely fine. So another way to practice all of those techniques. And then the final part of this week's challenge is to then use those shading techniques, those mark making techniques, to create a 3D effect on a shape. So I'm just going to have a quick go at maybe a circle, as good a circle as I can draw without a template. There we go. And I'm going to use my shading to turn my circle into more of a sphere. So I'm going to use some cross hatching here. So I'm going to think about where the shadow would fall on my sphere to give it the effect of the 3D. So I'm likely to have an area with no shading on it at all, and that's going to help give the 3D effect. That's starting to look a little bit more 3D. I'm just layering up my cross hatching. It seems a bit flat around here, so I'm just going to give a little bit more of a curve. And there we go, my circle looks a little bit more like a sphere now. So that's the final mark making technique or challenge of this week. So have a go, take your time over these. That's the key thing. It's not something to rush. You need to take time, explore, get a feel for your pencil. Try holding your pencil in different ways, using different parts of the lead, and explore, experiment. I find this really relaxing, so hopefully you should find it an enjoyable activity that you can chill out to, especially if the weather's not so great next week. Again, tweet your pictures, tweet what you've done, send them into class teachers, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with. Happy drawing!